What makes up a forest, a desert, or even a fish tank? It's not just the living things, but all the non-living things too. An ecosystem is a community of all the living organisms and the non-living things in a specific area. We call the living parts biotic factors and the non-living parts abiotic factors. They're all part of one big, interconnected system. So let's be more specific. Biotic factors are all the living things you can find: plants, animals, fungi, and bacteria. Think of every living creature in a forest. Abiotic factors are the non-living things, like sunlight, water, temperature, soil, and the air. You can't have a forest without both the trees, biotic, and the soil, abiotic. They depend on each other. Within an ecosystem, nothing exists alone. Organisms are always interacting with other organisms and with their non-living environment. These interactions are what make an ecosystem tick. They can be simple, like a bird drinking from a puddle, or complex, like the relationship between an entire population of predators and their prey. One of the most common interactions is competition. This happens when organisms need the same resources to survive, and those resources are limited. For example, if a small patch of grass is a good food source for two squirrels, they will compete with each other for that food. Competition can happen between different species, like a lion and a hyena competing for a zebra, or even between members of the same species. A classic example of an ecosystem interaction is the predator-prey relationship. A predator is an animal that hunts and kills another animal, its prey, for food. Think about a fox hunting a rabbit. The size of the fox population is directly linked to the size of the rabbit population. If there are more rabbits, the foxes have more to eat and their population grows. But as the fox population grows, they eat more rabbits and the rabbit population shrinks. It's a constant, natural cycle. Another type of relationship is called symbiosis. This is a close, long-term relationship between two different species. There are three main kinds, and they all have different effects on the organisms involved. It's like having a best friend. The relationship can be a win-win, a one-sided benefit, or even harmful. The first type is mutualism, where both species benefit from the relationship. A perfect example is a bee and a flower. The bee gets a delicious meal of nectar from the flower, and in return, the flower gets pollinated, which helps it reproduce. Both the bee and the flower get something they need, making it a perfect win-win relationship. Next is commensalism, where one species benefits, but the other is completely unaffected. A great example is a barnacle attaching itself to a whale. The barnacle gets a free ride through the ocean, which exposes it to more food. The whale, however, doesn't even notice the barnacle is there. It doesn't help or harm the whale at all. The last type of symbiosis is parasitism. This is a relationship where one species, the parasite, benefits at the expense of another, the host, which is harmed. A tick feeding on a dog's blood is a great example. The tick gets a free meal and a place to live, but the dog can become sick or lose too much blood. The tick benefits and the dog is harmed. It's not just living things that interact with each other. Organisms are constantly responding to the abiotic factors in their environment. A plant needs sunlight and water to make food. A fish needs a certain water temperature to survive. Animals might migrate to find warmer temperatures in the winter. These non-living factors determine where and how living things can exist. Let's apply these ideas to a simple pond ecosystem. Our biotic factors are things like the fish, frogs, algae, and lily pads. Our abiotic factors are the water, the temperature, the amount of sunlight, and the rocks at the bottom. By analyzing how these factors change, we can understand the interactions in the pond. Imagine we've been collecting data on our pond. A sudden heat wave is a change in an abiotic factor, the temperature. Our data shows that as the water temperature rises, the fish population starts to decline. We can analyze this and explain that the high temperature made it difficult for the fish to get enough oxygen from the water, which led to their decline. This shows a direct link between a non-living factor and a living one. What if our data showed that the frog population suddenly exploded, with lots of new baby frogs? We might then see a sharp decrease in the number of insects in the pond. We can explain that the frogs are now competing for a limited food source. This competition for food and space can ultimately cause the frog population to stabilize or even fall again once the food runs out. Let's say a new group of herons, a type of bird that eats fish and frogs, moves to the pond. Our data would likely show that as the heron population rises, the populations of fish and frogs start to fall. This is the classic predator-prey relationship in action. The heron population is thriving because of a new food source, but the fish and frog populations are shrinking because they are the prey. The key to understanding ecosystems is interpreting the data we collect. Scientists use graphs and charts to visualize these changes. When you see one line on a graph going up and another line going down, it's a clue that there's an interaction happening. It's like solving a mystery. The data gives us the clues we need to explain what's going on. The relationship isn't just one way. Organisms also have a big impact on their environment. For example, plant roots grow into cracks in rocks and break them apart, which helps create soil. Earthworms tunnel through the soil, which helps aerate it and makes it healthier for plants to grow. Living things are constantly shaping the non-living world around them. As humans, we are a very powerful biotic factor in ecosystems. Our actions can have huge effects. When we build a city, we change the landscape and reduce the amount of living space for animals. When we pollute a river, we change the abiotic factor of water quality, which can harm or kill all the organisms living in it. Understanding our impact is the first step toward protecting these systems. Once you've collected data and identified the interactions, you can develop an explanation. For instance, you could say, "My data shows the fish population dropped after the heat wave. This is because the high water temperature, abiotic factor, decreased the amount of dissolved oxygen, which the fish need to survive." This is an example of how an abiotic factor can harm a biotic factor. Healthy ecosystems are like a finely tuned machine. They are in a state of balance. When a sudden change occurs, whether it's a heat wave, a new species, or pollution, that balance can be thrown off, causing a ripple effect throughout the entire system. Understanding these intricate interactions is crucial if we want to protect and preserve the health of our planet. In conclusion, an ecosystem is a complex web of biotic, living, and abiotic, non-living factors. They interact in many ways, from competition and predator-prey relationships to mutualism and parasitism. By analyzing data from these interactions, we can explain how changes in one part of the ecosystem affect all the others. This knowledge helps us to better understand and protect our amazing world.